The live edition of Taking Stock. I'm Al Edwards, and we'll be bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. Now, you must be wondering, who am I? I'm founder and CEO of digital news company Hour Today, and I'll be filling in for Kalila, my good friend who will be overseas. She's asked me to host the show, so here we go. Just reminding you to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel, and also let me know in the comments where you're joining us from. Here's a look at what's coming up in tonight's show, followed by what's hot in business. And come on, let's get this money.
Ciboney has a new boss in town, and he's planning a major shakeup of the shell company. And the energy sector might have some competition. Executive Chairman Nigel Davy, in an exclusive interview, will discuss Ciboney's plans for growth. And the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. EPPLEY's Annual 2023 report is out. How did they perform? And what can we expect for 2024 international markets? We'll discuss. But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. VM Wealth Management is going regional. The Jamaican company just opened its first overseas office in Barbados. According to the company, the Barbados location officially opened last Monday following the acquisition of Republic Funds Barbados Incorporated mutual funds. The VM Wealth Barbados office will now manage the rebranded mutual funds and is focused on driving financial education among Bajans and the wider Caribbean. VM Wealth Barbados office will be led by Sean Yearwood, who has over 15 years experience in Barbados' financial industry. The Office of Utilities Regulation, OUR, says over $51 million was due for payment to utility customers between July and September 2023. The payout is a result of breaches of the guaranteed standards by the National Water Commission and the Jamaica Public Service Company. The OUR said about $42 million was automatically applied to JPS customers' bills for the company's failure to meet certain guaranteed standards, including restoring electricity supply within 24 hours of payment of overdue amounts. The NWC has reportedly repaid $3.5 million of the $9.5 million owed to customers for its breaches. Chairman and CEO of LVMH, Bernard Arnault, is now the richest man in the world, surpassing Elon Musk. LVMH is the company behind dozens of luxury goods brands like Louis Vuitton and Sephora. According to Forbes, Arnault and his family's net worth grew to $208 billion on Friday after a $24 billion increase, surpassing Elon Musk's $204 billion net worth. The news comes as Musk's Tesla struggled in the stock market on Thursday, dropping 13%, resulting in Musk losing more than $18 billion in net worth. Meanwhile, LVMH shares soared over 13% by 11 a.m. on Friday on the heels of a strong sales report. Technology giant Microsoft just laid off 1,900 workers in its gaming unit. The job cuts account for approximately 9% of the total workforce at Microsoft Gaming, which consists of 22,000 employees. The layoffs come just 3 months after Microsoft completed its acquisition of the gaming giant Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. So far in January, over 23,000 workers have been laid off from 85 tech companies. What's Hot was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
What do the world's richest people all have in common? I'll give you the top 5 from the Forbes Rich List, and let's see if you can figure it out. Number 1 is Bernard Arnault, founder of LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. Number 2, Elon Musk, co-founder of Tesla and SpaceX. 3 is Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon. 4, Larry Ellison, co-founder of tech giant Oracle. And number 5 is Warren Buffett, founder of Berkshire Hathaway. So it should be pretty obvious, right? They all founded or co-founded major companies. They're all entrepreneurs. Jeff Bezos famously founded Amazon out of his garage in 1994. Elon Musk has co-founded 6 companies, including Tesla. Warren Buffett is perhaps the world's most famous investor, but he also founded the investment firm Berkshire Hathaway. So without a doubt, entrepreneurship is one of the major keys to wealth creation. For the world's richest man, Bernard Arnault, this also means generational wealth. All 5 of his children work at LVMH. Now, if this is what you envision for yourself, your first step is simply to get started. Bring that business idea to reality with Business Startup Basics. In this Money Mission webinar, corporate attorney and business accelerator Chantal Simpson tells you everything you need to know to set up your business legally. Now, you already missed the live, but the replay is now available. The link is in the description. Let's get this money.
This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy.
Hey, we're back, and we'd like to give a shout out to Philip Burgess, who's joining us from Turks and Caicos, Jermaine Davis, who's joining us from China, all the way from China, and the Humble Boss checking in from Negril. Now, Ciboney has a new boss in town, and he's planning a major shakeup and looking to take Ciboney to an altogether new level and to change the whole look of the company. And the energy sector as well, I might add. So joining me now to discuss Ciboney's massive plans for growth, we have Ciboney's Group Executive Chairman, Nigel Davy. Hello, good evening, Nigel, and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Al, and how are you doing today?
Pretty good, Nigel. For those who don't know too much about you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you intend to do with Ciboney?
Well, first, I simply describe myself as an entrepreneur and energy professional. And I've been doing this for over 35 years. I've worked in developing and implementing energy infrastructure projects in the US, Jamaica, and Central America. Some of our local projects here in Jamaica include, of course, Jamaica Brothers Cogeneration Plant, which I developed, constructed, and operated back in 1997. Jamaica Brothers Ethanol Plant, which I built for the Jamaica Brothers Group around 2004. The West Kingston Power Plant, which is owned by Jamaica Energy Partners, that was done in 2012. And of course, more recently, we have built a PV solar project for the Norman International Airport. That was a 2 megawatt PV solar project at the Sangster International Airport. We have done phase 2 of that project, which was 2.2 megawatts of PV solar. And we are now about to embark on phase 3 via a joint venture with Wigton Wind Farm Limited. Via that same joint venture, we are currently pursuing a project with the National Irrigation Commission in St. Elizabeth, which is another solar project with battery energy storage provided by Huawei. And of course, we have done several other microturbine cogeneration projects, including at the Hilton Hotel, the Couples Resort, Lifespan Water, the Everglades Farm, among others. So we have done and are doing quite a bit of energy projects in Jamaica.
Yes, a rich background there, Nigel. Give us a brief rundown of Ciboney, and we hear it referred to as a shell company. What does that mean exactly?
Well, essentially, Ciboney had little or no assets when we acquired it. It was listed on Jamaica Stock Exchange. It was indeed a strategic acquisition for us. If you know the history of Ciboney, I believe they were among the first all-inclusive resorts in Jamaica.
Yes, I recall.
Yes, in fact, Boscobel Beach Hotel, now Beaches Boscobel,
yes,
was owned by Ciboney back in the days. But in recent times, well, not in recent times, but FinSAC took over their assets during the financial crisis in the 90s. And more recently, Wilshire, via IEC Energy Company, acquired the company from FinSAC in June of 2023. So shell company, meaning it has no, let me say, tangible assets. Mm-hmm. But we believe it was a strategic acquisition for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so where does the company stand today? I see my good friend Wayne Reyes join your board, but where does the company stand today?
Yes, indeed. Wayne is a very good friend, and Wayne is the chairman of our Finance and Investment Committee, working very hard to help us to transform.
You always work hard.
Yeah, so coming out of our AGM in December, The shareholders voted to, among other things, to change the name of the company to Innovative Energy Group, IEG. And of course, the name aligns better with the new thrust and vision of the company, energy and innovation.
Yes. So what was the last asset sold by the company?
I know that Ciboney owned some properties down in Westmoreland, and that was the last major transaction through the company.
Okay. How much does it take to run the company each year, and how do you intend to transform it? Do you have a number, what you want to inject capital-wise into the company, the new venture?
Well, Ciboney, as you well know, had no active business ongoing.
Yes.
The company which I currently own prior to Ciboney is Innovative Energy Company Limited, DBA IECSPI Limited, and that is an EPC contracting company, and I would describe ourselves as being vertically integrated. So we develop, currently design, and install energy infrastructure projects. We continue that trend, and we're looking to have Ciboney acquire my local company, and of course that will require capital. Among other things, we'll be pursuing other energy infrastructure projects. We have quite a bit of projects in the pipeline. We have several transactions that we're looking at that we intend to pursue. Of course, your listeners and yourself might be aware of the recently issued request for proposal by the Generation Procurement Entity, the GPE.
Yes.
To bid on that project, at least.
That's a 100 megawatt project, right?
Well, they're asking for 100 megawatt of renewable energy.
Yes.
In bites of between 5, 10, and up to 50 megawatts.
Right.
If you want to participate in a part of that, let me say, segment, if you will, between 5 and 50 megawatts.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about Innovative Energy Group. I mean, the country needs a new energy thrust, if you pardon the pun there, in the sense that, I mean, we spend a lot of money importing energy, and we're now looking at more alternatives. We're looking at green solutions. We're looking at other sources of energy, and we're taking a good look at renewables. So tell me a little bit about where Innovative Energy Group stands with all this.
Okay, so we currently pursue combined cooling, heat, and power projects, which are classified cogeneration projects. That's what our core has been until, I would say, 5 years ago, where we ventured into the RE space, which is primarily the photovoltaic solar space. We have done quite well in that area thus far. I outlined a few of the projects which we had pursued, Manly, Sangster Airport projects, and those are relatively large projects for Jamaica and the region. We expect to scale up. There are a tremendous amount of opportunities in the industry or in Jamaica and the region, and we want to participate in transforming Jamaica and the regional economy, green economy, and we are properly positioned to do that. And we're going to be using Ciboney, formerly Ciboney, now Innovative Energy Group, to do just that.
Right. Have you identified any possible projects in the wider Caribbean? Have you got your eye on any particular projects?
We're looking at bidding on a couple of projects in, I don't want to name the country, but well, I could name one or two. We looked at Guyana.
Well, give us one.
We looked at Guyana, and we're looking at St. Kitts. So. Okay. But we are focused primarily in Jamaica at the moment because there are so much opportunities here to pursue, and we don't want to spread ourselves too thin initially. But we intend to really get involved in the wider Caribbean with transforming their economy, if you will, to the green economy using renewable energy.
Understood. Now tell our viewers, traditionally Ciboney stock is up and down like a yo-yo. You would know that over the years. What do you think you can bring to it to get that stock as a stock that people should have in their portfolio and be proud to have it and to see that stock grow and pay off good dividends?
Well, let me start at when we acquired Ciboney. Ciboney was trading at in the 55 cents range. Today, it is trading at $1.50. Clearly, this is based upon investor sentiments the confidence investors have in our ability, if you will, to transform this business, and we intend to do that. We're going to
And in the
focus.
group too, the Wiltshire group as well, I would imagine.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Has there been a decision made on whether the new energy group will eventually take over the assets of Connected Company, Innovative Energy Company, and so forth, the subsidiaries?
Well, we want to close the first transaction, I would say, by end of this quarter.
Okay.
We are in discussion with other other owners of energy assets, and we're looking seriously at getting deeper in the larger, let me say, an RE space, if you will.
Right. Now tell me, what will happen to the remaining Ciboney shares?
Well, the remaining Ciboney shares are actively being traded on the Jamaica Stock Exchange as we speak. The shareholders are enjoying, let me say, an uptick in the value of their shareholdings. Those shares will remain on the market and will be traded as they are currently now. We hope that we have more investors in the near term, based upon the vision that we have articulated for the company.
Right. So you're looking to at least $20 million in the first instance to execute capital-intensive energy sector projects?
Absolutely. Based upon the transaction which we are pursuing, that's the first round of capital raise, if you will, based upon the transactions that we're looking at the moment.
Right. And what kind of feedback are you getting on that? Are you seeing considerable interest, or is there an uptick in interest, or what are you picking up out there?
We are seeing a lot of interest. Clearly, the market has been challenged over the past, I would say, a year, but we are seeing quite a bit of interest.
Yes. Well, let me put this to you. I mean, we know where the Jamaica stock, we see where the Jamaican stock market is now, but this is a altogether new kind of company, an energy company. Traditionally, we see financial sector players, manufacturers, distributors, but energy. And does an education program need to take place here where we get people to invest in these sort of things? We've seen big energy companies, we've seen the BPs, we've seen Total, we've seen companies all over the world. But here we have a Caribbean energy company. What could be done to get so people know more about energy and see it as something worthwhile to invest in? After all, we all need energy.
Yes, indeed, there needs to be some education. But I must tell you that currently we have seen a change in the acceptance of green energy. In the past, clearly people were stymied or potential, let me say, owners of energy asset were stymied because of the cost. The cost
Right.
of RE, renewable energy, especially solar, has declined significantly over the past 5 years. Same thing applies to battery energy storage. So we're seeing people, potential clients, doing quite a bit of investment, or they're seeking knowledge. How can they get their home solarized, for example, their businesses solarized, for example, to reduce their energy costs? And people are very conscious also about essentially contributing to the green economy. They want to see our all-import bill reduced. So I would say, especially Jamaican consumers, they are in vogue as it relates to green energy, and people are really getting on board. We have seen that interest in the market. If you look today, for example, at Wigton Wind Farm, the quantum of shares that were traded on the stock exchange, they're over 7 million. So people are in tune. Same thing with Ciboney. Look at the price, where it's coming from to where it is today. So people are learning, but we need to do more to educate the Jamaican consumer and, dare I say, the regional consumers.
I see. We've got a question here from Simon Johnson, and Simon is asking, can you give us an idea of the size of the company that Ciboney will purchase?
Without giving away too much, we would say the first transaction is going to be, upwards of about $10 million. And then we are looking at others, which is in the region of $20 to $30 million. So those are the two transaction that we're looking at the moment.
Now tell me, Nigel, have you thought about partnering with Wigton Wind Farm and being a much bigger entity? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we currently have a joint venture with Wigton, and just for full disclosure, I'm also a director over at Wigton. And just for full disclosure again, of course, we observe the corporate governance regarding a conflict of interest over at Wigton, but we collaborate. As you well know, Wigton was primarily a wind company. We are playing in the other RE space, which is primarily PV, solar, and battery energy storage. So we have the strategic alliance that we have with Wigton is mutually beneficial. So we want to deepen the relationship that we have with Wigton, and I know this is a mutual field by both companies and board of directors.
Yes, I can recall the Jamaica Broilers ethanol project, and you mentioned earlier that you worked on that. Can you tell us a little bit about other projects you worked on and that particular project at the time?
Sure.
Because you're bringing experience to this.
Absolutely. So our first project, and I indicated earlier, our first project in Jamaica with the Jamaica Broilers Group was their cogeneration plant, which I developed and constructed back in 1997. And in 2004, we developed and constructed the Jamaica Broilers ethanol plant. So we have been doing quite a bit of work with the Jamaica Broilers Group for quite a while, and we still are.
I see. You're also going to be working with Huawei, and they're a very good company, as we well know, and you've got your eyes set on a battery-related project. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so we established last spring a strategic partnership with Huawei while we were visiting with them in China. And just in December last year, we executed a follow-up agreement with them to essentially market and sell their large-scale commercial industrial products, inverters, and utility-scale batteries. And we are actively doing that. In fact, the project which we are working on through the joint venture with Wigton in St. Elizabeth, the NI National Irrigation Commission, we are using Huawei products on that particular project. The Sangster International Airport project, phase 3, we are using the Huawei product. And we expect to use their product for a while to come. And I must add, they make good inverters and excellent battery energy storage system.
Right. Now tell me, how are you planning to raise the funds? What are we looking at here?
We'll be raising funds to finance our new ventures via a mix of vehicles, APO, private placement, and bonds. The ultimate method will be subject to advice, of course, from our financial partners, and of course, subject to board approval. And as I indicated earlier, our Wayne Ray, who you know very well, and the industry knows very well, who chairs our Finance and Investment Committee, of course, is guiding that process.
Right. So when do you anticipate the APO? When could we look for that?
Well, we, as I indicated, we're not quite sure if it's going to be an APO, private placement, or bonds. We are still in discussion with our advisor or partners, and of course, all of this is subject to board approval. Suffice to say, the method of raising of the financing for the project for the company will be that deemed to be in the best interest of our shareholders.
Yes. Now you're going to be positioning the company to bid on the Jamaican government 100 megawatt project. Tell me a little bit about that and the role of renewable energy for the country, for Jamaica.
Well, in essence, the government established a very ambitious target of 50% renewable energy by 2030.
Yes.
I think the government will attain that more realistically around 2037.
Yes.
This 100 megawatt RFP is a bold move by the government, and we intend to participate by bidding on a tranche of that 100 megawatts.
So you'll be looking for just that chance to enter that?
To begin with, and of course, I expect that the government will be coming out with additional RFPs, and we want to be positioned to bid on additional renewable energy into the Jamaica, the national grid.
Okay. Tell me, with your considerable experience, can you give perhaps an overview of how you see the energy sector, not just in Jamaica, but even globally? Where are we going? Where do you see us going in the next, say, 10 to 20 years? You
This
can start from Jamaica and then go down across the world.
Well, I will
You
tell
must have
you,
seen a lot of changes in your career. So,
absolutely. I mean, 10 years ago, you wouldn't, as a business, look at renewable energy because of the high cost then.
yes.
Today, that has changed. And truth be told, because the cost have declined so much, especially PV solar and batteries, we believe that the PV solar RE will dominate the renewable energy thrust of Jamaica and the region, and I would hasten to say the world, because it is the least expensive, fastest to implement, and of course, the end price would be the best for consumers. Now, of course, we have wind, but wind is a tad more expensive because of the supply demand issue. But I expect to see renewable energy dominate, let me say, utilities across the globe. And just think about it. We spend over $3 billion annually on imported fuel.
Yes, it's too
Much
high.
of that goes to generate power. The sun is our oil, and the cost to implement these renewable energy projects have declined substantially. So Jamaica is on the right path. The world is on the right path. We want to participate.
Okay. We have another question from Simon Johnson. And Simon's asking, why has Ciboney not provided the top 10 holdings? Is this related to the admin and legal changes that form a part of the transition?
Well, that information is out, and that information by now should be on our website. There are some issues with the transition at the company's office, not company's office, I'm sorry, at the Jamaica Stock Exchange with let me say, KPMG, who is our registrar and the seller of the assets of Ciboney, but that has been sorted out.
Yeah.
That top 10 will be published. If it's not already published on our website, that will be out, and also on the JAC website.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Davy, for spending some time with us this evening and giving us an insight on what you intend to do with Ciboney and with the energy project and with IEG. And we look forward to hearing more from you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure indeed, Al. All the best. You take
All the
care.
best.
Good
Bye now. All right, now it's time for tonight's poll question. Should Jamaica implement a four-day working week? A, yes, it's a good idea. B, no, it will encourage people to become lazy. C, it won't work for all careers and all jobs. D, other. Please leave a comment. Take the poll on Twitter or on the community tab or on the YouTube channel. You can leave your comments in the chat. So, yesterday, Kalila had her Ask Mike show on her program where 5 persons were asked to selected to speak to billionaire Michael Lee Chin, executive chairman of NCB, and ask a question. Here's a clip of what you missed.
My question is, what guide or what rule do I use to get investors? Is there like some sort of a skill, or what's the rule or the guide?
You have to be able to sell.
Yes.
Right? And therefore you have to be able to infuse confidence in the people you want to have confidence in you.
Yes.
So you have to be able to infuse confidence in those you want to invest in you. So therefore, you have to demonstrate mastery of what it is you do. Mastery.
Yes.
You have to be able to articulate your mastery. Articulate it with passion.
Yes.
And you have to be able to demonstrate that whatever you're selling is relevant to society in some way.
Yes.
right? So once you can demonstrate mastery, you can show relevance to society, and you can develop confidence by virtue of your passion.
Yes.
Right? Then the job is, the job is nearly done.
This segment.
Okay, remember to hit the like button. Please remember to do so. Up next, we've got your market recap, and the analysts are standing by.
This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency. Insurance made easy. Hey moneymakers, join the KRM fam with our official merch. Get it now at KalilaReynolds.com. Let's get this money.
The JC Combined Index was up almost 1% last week. 126 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, January 26, 2024. 65 made gains, 50 lost value, and 11 stayed the same. JMMB 9.5% was last week's most traded stock. It took up 27% of market volume with 38 million shares trading. The stock lost 1 cent to open the new week at $1.01. Trans-Jamaican traded the second highest. The stock gained 20 cents to open this week at $3.18. And Fesco rounded out last week's most traded with 16 million shares changing hands. The stock lost 23 cents to open Monday at $3.42. Now let's see who had the biggest gains for the week. Cygnus Credit Investments USD was the market's biggest gainer. The stock was up 28% to open Monday at 9 cents US. KLE was up 22% to start the new week at $2.25. And Cygnus Credit Investments 8.5% preference shares due 2026 was the week's third biggest gainer. It was up almost 18% to open the new week at $11.79. On the losing side now, PBS 9.75% cumulative redeemable was the week's biggest loser. The stock lost $30 to open Monday at $90. EPPLEY 7.75% was the week's second biggest loser, opening the new week at $18.08. And JMMB 5.75% FRUSD CR preference shares lost 15% to close the week at $1.70 US. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index lost 17 points last week. Massey was the most traded stock. The stock lost 10 cents to open this week at $4.34 TT. Trinidad Cement was the biggest gain of the week. The stock was up 9% to start the new week at $3.28 TT. And on the losing side, Angostura Holdings fell 20% to open Monday at $17.25 TT. Over in the US, the Dow Jones and the Nasdaq were mostly flat last week, while the S&P 500 was up by 1%. Motorists saw an increase at the pumps last week. Gas prices went up 25 cents, while regular diesel climbed 25 cents, and low sulfur diesel gained 25 cents. In foreign exchange, it took an average $156.40 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's 32 cents more than the week before. Meanwhile, it took an average $116.37 Jamaican to purchase $1 Canadian. One British pound cost an average $199.88 Jamaican, and you could buy €1 for $172.38 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices were up 5% over the past 5 days, trading at $42,152 US on Sunday. Ethereum prices rose slightly, trading at $2,264 US on Sunday. Disclaimer. This is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
Okay, we're giving a shout out to Orville Reeves, also to Tevin King, who's joining us from Los Angeles. We're also giving a shout out to Sean Brown and also to Strong Link, who says, "Good evening, investors." Okay, it's now time for the analysts. I'm joined by business writer, the Jamaica Observer, David Rose, and founder of Wealth Watch, J.A. Julian Morrison. So over to you, David.
Good evening, everybody. So
Good
today we're
evening.
going to be talking about. Oh, there was a lag a while ago. Not sure why the lag is showing up. So yeah, good evening, everybody. So today we will be talking about EPPLEY Property Fund, specifically the Valley Fund, which is what is listed on the JSC and is of the most significant value to investors. So for the 2023 financial year, which should have ended on September 30, EPPLEY Property Fund Valley Fund, which is shortened to CPFV, that saw a 62% increase in its total income, which should have come up to about BDS $21.3 million, or about 1.6 billion Jamaican dollars. I believe that's probably a little higher, but about 1.6 billion Jamaican dollars. And that would have been driven heavily by the fair value gains it would have derived from some of its some of its investment properties that are based here in Jamaica. And during the year, they would have acquired the remaining 50% interest on 693 Spanish Town Road, and they have started to, put a significant amount of, or I should say, significant amounts of money into redeveloping the property to rent at the higher rate to a significant blue chip tenant. So that property on 693 Spanish Town Road, it was fully occupied at September 2022. It was unoccupied at September 2023, but it's likely that they'd have found a tenant at the property since then. And to give some further context, they would have acquired 22 properties from Jane Bank at the end of the financial year on September 29. So these figures wouldn't have been, well, the income from that transaction wouldn't have shown up as yet, but the Caribbean Property Fund actually saw its total property square footage go up to 1.14 million square feet. And this is, a significant step up from the 270,000 square feet you'd have started prior to listing on the JSC back in May 2019, around August 2019. So they've made a significant step up in terms of, the property that they do own and the diversity of properties that they do own as well. And, they've been doing some pretty good work when you think about the fact that they're paying a quarterly dividend right now. They're funding an EPPLEY style similar structure in terms of a small quarterly dividend and a large dividend in the financial year. So shareholders who are on record of January 12 should be getting a dividend for March 24. And although dividends quoted in BDS, which is that stands for Barbadian dollars, the dividend is actually payable in USD for shareholders not based in Barbados. So if you're in Jamaica, make sure that it's your mandate to go to use a bank account if you have one in place. And there were several other activities that took place closer to the end and start of the new financial year. So they left from a new holding company based in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we're not sure, if they're going to be doing some sort of project down there as yet, probably more likely. And they also, acquired ECPF Initial Property Holdings Limited, which is based in Trinidad and Tobago. So we're not sure, what deal is going to come out of it as yet, but based on the name, it's like kind of the industrial asset that will feed towards growing the bottom line and overall top line as well. So EPPLEY Property Fund, had another strong year. The development fund will have seen a significant shift during the year in the sense that its fund manager, EPPLEY Fund Managers Limited, will have taken a significant majority interest in the fund. It would have disposed of 2 additional properties and is currently looking to realign its mandate right now. So this particular stock, EPPLEY Property Fund, is trading at about 57% discount to its net asset value. The net asset value is simply is the shareholders' equity divided by the number of shares of the company. And at the end of September 2023, it would have been BDS 0.88, which is about 66.88 Jamaican dollars. Well, it's again trading at about 30 Jamaican dollars. So there's that significant, difference right there And when you convert the dividend payments, annualized payments relative to the stock price, you're at about 6% dividend yield, which is relatively pretty far from their desired targeted yield of 9% based on the NAV and 14% based on the stock price. So the continued growth of the property fund in Jamaica across the region will augur better for investors going forward, for those who look to that stability of the real estate portfolio or real estate assets and that stable dividend income.
David, let me ask you, what's your take, or what are you seeing in the commercial real estate space in Jamaica and across the Caribbean? What are you seeing?
So from just my naive perspective, what you're seeing is specialized properties. So on the industrial side, you're seeing more built-to-suit properties. So for example, you'd have seen Cygnus Real Estate Finance develop that property on Spanish Town Road as well,
Yes.
for IMCA Jamaica. And then you're seeing other projects going on right now. So for example, you would have seen a new property or plaza developed on Red Hills Road, which was built towards a BPO, but also towards, supporting the surrounding community. And then you're also seeing different commercial properties, like, for example, Stanley Motor Limited expanding their Unit 1 property into a 10-story building. So, and that is, focused towards integrating some of the muscle and related companies and other third-party businesses into that unit. So basically what I'm trying to highlight is that you're seeing a lot more built-to-suit, specified properties. And when you come into this commercial segment, you're just seeing more, I should say, a bit more specialized and deliberate focus by investors, or not even investors, but real estate developers towards those specialized properties. So for example, Cygnus Real Estate Finance is also developing Lakespen, the 55-acre property by Lakespen in St. Catherine, and you have that proposed, I believe it is economic free zone that is by Caymanas. So you're seeing more and more specialized developments in terms of commercial on the office side, more towards companies that want to scale up from their current abode to higher levels of property. Let's say, for example, from a smaller complex space in a smaller office to a bigger, more appropriate, space. And for the industrial side, you're seeing more developments being built, and developed alongside the growth in manufacturing that is having to bud further and further in Jamaica. And with the person asking about EPPLEY Property Fund, so the dividend is quoted in Barbadian dollars, but like other companies, if you are based outside of the country of jurisdiction, you are paid in another currency. So in this case, you'll be paid in US dollars if you own EPPLEY Property Fund and you're based in Jamaica. Can't say the same for Trinidad, but how would that make sense for you?
Yes. Now that leads me into, we have a question here from Javon Russell who's asking, EPPLEY Caribbean Property Value Fund, does it pay US dividends?
I just answered that.
Yes. Do you want to expand on that?
No, it is expounded. So if you're based outside of, in this case, Barbados, you're paid US dollar dividends if you're based in Jamaica.
Yeah.
So when it's quoted in BDS, you get paid in US dollars.
David, let me also ask you, a few years ago, there was this explosion in buildings for BPOs and the BPO sector. With AI coming into play now and the rest of it, what do you see? Do you see a slowdown in those kind of projects, or what's your take on that?
The reality is, right now, you're going to still have a situation whereby labor needs to meet, some form of work. And the reason why I say that is, while we have this current risk of AI, there are still some elements that are going to be harder to shift and not happen overnight. So while in some parts of, for example, the first world, like the USA, you get robots or automated, voices when you call customer care, we're still taking time in this part of the world, Latin American, Caribbean, to shift forward in that sense. So in terms of AI disruption, it will take a little bit more time before you potentially see some sort of significant disruption in the Caribbean in particular. You have to consider accent, dialect, and just a myriad of other factors. I'm not saying it will happen, but you might see some level of, shift in terms of how some developers build these BPO complexes and potentially look at Second Life for, potential other tenants.
Okay, thank you, David. A very perspicacious insight as usual. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again next week. We've got a question here from Alandi Lawson who asks, Victoria Mutual or Scotia, which is the better buy? Very interesting. Okay, Julian, now it's your time. What can we expect for 2024's international markets? Over to you, Julian.
Good evening, viewers.
Good
So
evening.
I'll just keep my presentation brief. So what we've seen so far is a strong performance from the NASDAQ composite. So as it is, NASDAQ is actually up 36% year over year and up 3.3% year to date, even though the year just started. We're just 1 month in pretty much. Meanwhile, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 14.1% year over year and up 2.06% year to date. And lastly, the S&P 500 is up 21.06% year over year and up 3.3% year to date. So the performance is tracking very similar to the NASDAQ composite from a year to date standpoint. So what we've noticed is that the market has been rallying based on a stronger than expected Q4 performance from most companies that posted their earnings. The earnings are still being released as we speak, but earnings season actually started last week. And overall, we're seeing a stronger than expected performance across most sectors. So what's important is that the Fed actually meets tomorrow, and we anticipate a monetary pause at this meeting. And that might not necessarily be gung-ho for most investors, but right now, investors are happy for anything that is not a hike at this point, because the market has been very tired of the bad news, especially coming from the aggressive hiking cycle in 2022 and 2023. However, the Fed has been on a monetary pause since about July. Now, technology continues to lead the way based on the AI boom or the bull case for AI, especially in enterprises. And the next sector that has been doing very well is consumer discretionary. So those are a lot of retail names. American Express, that's a credit card company, the MasterCards of the world, etc., which would have seen a very strong Christmas season. The US economy actually grew 3.3% in Q4, which is much higher than the initial forecast of 2%. So the US economy itself is showing stronger performance than expected, especially coming from consumer spending, which has now fed into earnings, which is now feeding into the market performance. And lastly, in terms of the outlook, the market consensus is for 7 rate cuts from the Fed, but my opinion is a maximum of 3, because inflation is still sticky, even though it's trending downward. And we also have to factor in the tension from the Red Sea, specifically on how that can affect shipping rates, which affects everything. We've learned that from the pandemic, and also where oil prices could go with an escalation in the conflict between the Gaza and the Israel war.
Yes, Julie, let me ask you, last week we saw Tesla down some 13%, and there was a big hullabaloo about that. What's your take on Tesla?
Well, I'm going to let down a lot of viewers, but I was never a Tesla bull. I always thought that Elon Musk was a visionary and that he would be able to increase vehicle deliveries and production. But I was always thinking of it from a game theory standpoint. So what Tesla has effectively done is to create a market and a proof of concept for EVs and certain kind of technological innovations like autonomous driving for argument's sake. But the argument is, okay, how long can Tesla keep this up as a market leader? Is it that all the other car manufacturers, which have figured out car manufacturing for so many years, are going to sit on the sidelines? Not necessarily. Companies that have the market intelligence and the experience to know what is economically viable are likely to step in. So the VWs of the world, the Fords of the world, the General Motors of the world, maybe to a lesser extent, and importantly, Toyota. These companies are not going to play dead. So if it is that Tesla has market leadership in these areas of innovation, it's likely that the companies that have been around for so long are likely to come in and adopt and to press forward to keep their market share. And Toyota has gone as far as saying that because of the economics, they're not as quick to shift to EVs as other manufacturers. They're going to keep using internal combustion engines or hybrids for as long as possible because that is what is financially viable. And the infrastructure in most countries are not suited for EVs, which is why Toyota is slower to switch. So I applaud Tesla for what they have accomplished, but I'm not surprised as it relates to them having issues. I think it's early days yet. I think there's a space for Tesla, but I'm really not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yes. Let me ask you, closer to home, will we see the markets down locally and very kind of bearish, and the US market, particularly yesterday, I saw the S&P. Do you see investors there looking across the pond and probably switching out, or what do you see there?
You mean local investors going more
Yes,
international, Al?
yes.
Well, to some extent, there might be some investors who have the appetite for that, but the case can be made that those persons probably would have been looking for US exposure anyway, because I don't think it's either or, because the bull cases are different and they're each
Yes.
valid for different reasons. The US is at a different stage of development. The US has more depth, it has more variety, but many equity investors like to invest in what they know and what they're comfortable with. They like to invest in companies they can drive past every day and say, hey, I'm a shareholder in that entity. So I do think that there is somewhat of a shift because of the difference in performance now. But I think those persons who would have made that switch anyway, even if the JSE wasn't down, because there are two different reasons to love each market, because they each have their own merit.
Okay. Can we bring back David? Can we bring it back, David?
Anytime.
I'm right
David.
here. Don't worry.
Okay, Dave, yes. I wanted to ask you, what's your take on Ciboney? How do you see that stock, and how do you see it going forward?
Well,
That's one question. And my second question, it would be remiss of me if I didn't ask you. We're closing out the first month of the new year. How do you see equities in Jamaica over the next year or so?
so regarding the first question, it's good to see that some Ciboney's found a new life.
Yes.
Switching from tourism to, in this case, energy. Just looking forward to see how these potential future deals that were announced at the AGM are executed by Nigel and the team. But I am not worried about the company being able to execute. It's more so when some of these deals will be transacted. So right now we can see the IEC Wigton joint venture from Wigton's financials. We can get a glance from that. We can see the new deals that are being announced, and we can see the value in those deals. What I'm waiting to see, in a sense, is the next major step forward. So they increase the share capital to unlimited. They retweeted the articles, and they're looking to execute some of these deals later this year. However, how will they execute some of these deals given some constraints? Not just some interest rates, but just market liquidity and sentiment in the local market. I'm not saying they can't achieve these goals that they're planning to do, but it's more so when these goals will be achieved. So Ciboney is in a better position, just looking forward to see when things really materialize. And saying that I would wait until I see the first acquisition, but more so concrete, moves that have been made, rather than sit down in a position and be faced with the opportunity cost of waiting in Ciboney than find other opportunities in the market and then swinging back after. And then with respect to equities, local equities, I've not looked specifically to see what the performance of the JC index is right now, but from my last recollection, it was done year to date. Tomorrow is end of month, so we're likely to see some equities have a run up in the last couple of minutes. But in terms of the outlook for the rest of the year, it's relatively harder to say. Talking to different CEOs, we've heard, Marlene in the Gleaner about the expected rebound, and you're seeing investors, look for more stable returns in the meantime. So I could see some more mutedness in our local market for the next couple months. I can't speak, to next year as yet, because there are just too many variables that happen every second. So, we are hearing of the US planning to deal with the retaliation surrounding the drone strike that happened recently. We're still hearing about the Panama Canal. We're just hearing different things. And if you're on the ground talking to different people, there's a lot less spending. So you would have heard about, Christmas, and Christmas is traditionally a period when money is really spent. But when you speak to businesses, speak to marketing agencies, and everybody else, they say that December was pretty flat. It was not, the gung-ho we would have thought it to be. So right now I'm focusing more so on liquidity. So if I can switch between positions and make gains as needed, I'm fine with that, while building a solid long-term portfolio with some of those gains. But my main thing is I'd be sticking to holding on to cash for these that do pop up and take advantage of, those differentials whereby someone needs to get cash, and based on their exit, it's in the stock price to a level that I can get a good entry to make a stable profit. I'm no person going to say it's trading, but the reality is, well, we're going to say it's, kind of like swing trading from stock to stock, but the reality is I have to be looking more so at liquidity risk alongside, the potential upside that does exist on the merit of each company. So that's my take on the local equity market.
Okay, thank you very much, David. But I just want to keep you for 1 minute. Javon Russell says there, the thing with EPPLEY, this is to your point earlier, David. The thing with EPPLEY, as you stated earlier, is that it pays only one good dividend per year. The rest are basically minimal. So that's coming from Javon Russell. Thank you, fellas. Thank you, David. Thank you, Julian. And we will see you again next week. Thank you very much, fellas.
Thanks again, Al.
Yeah, man,
Okay,
thanks, Al.
bye now. We've got a comment here from Stronglink, who says, today was reported that Jamaica's unemployment rate was the lowest in our history. That is very good. But I am concerned that the economy may be too heavily skewed to the vulnerable BPO sector. Very interesting. On Stronglink says geopolitical issues may derail all of the Fed's projections, not to mention the 2024 elections. Maybe there may be merit in that. Talking about energy, someone says that Toyota is bullish on hydrogen. We will see. Devon says BYD is taking part of the Jamaican EV market. Okay, that's it for this week's show. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to Kalila's channel, and share with a friend. Also subscribe to a newsletter at KalilaReynolds.com/newsletter. Also, turn on those post notifications so that you can be the first to see all our other features. We want to help people learn more about money so we can all get this money together. Follow her on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Kalila-Ray. Remember that that's her only account. There's a lot of fake accounts, but Kalila is pushing through, and that's the account. She doesn't have any backup accounts. Please report scammers and impersonators wherever you see them. And there are a lot of scammers around, I can tell you that. To follow our today, our social media handles are Facebook, r.today.news, Instagram and Threads, our.today, YouTube, which is at r Today News, and LinkedIn, R Today. If you want to connect with the analysts this week, check the description box below for their contact information. Also visit Kalila's website, kalinareynolds.com, for financial information you can use however you like it. Watch, listen, or read. Now tell a friend about taking stock. Investing is the new sexy. So let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm Al Edwards. Thank you for watching, and good evening.
So today was the Build Your Budget workshop.
Can you imagine being in a room of like-minded people, over 10 heads, knocking together to help you to come up with solutions for your financial goals? And how important it is to hold yourself accountable, which is what the group offers. Encourage persons to come and be a part of Money Mission. Trust me, you will definitely learn a lot.
Let's get this money.